Namah Shivaya. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Usually you do Dakshina Murtaye Namaha remotely, but we're very happy that we have a pratyaksha right here that we prayed to this morning. So it's so wonderful to say Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. So we are in the topic of the nature of ajnanam. So when we say that we are ignorant of the self, what does it really mean? How does it express itself? In what way am I ignorant? Because if you talk to a person outside and say that you are ignorant of yourself, that person would protest. And he says, yes, I don't know everything about myself, especially, what my health is, what makes me go. So there are some things about my body, but I know pretty much what I am. So I don't understand what ignorance of the self you're talking about. So this would not be intelligible until you get into some depth about it. And then when you become a student of Vedanta, and then if some facts are given to you about the Atma, Anatma, and all those kinds of things, then at least the concept of the ignorance of the Atma becomes somewhat possible. I'm still functioning well, I think I'm doing okay, I don't know what else I need to do, but I'm willing to listen to this and so on. But here, Adi Sankara says, and so this is, as I said, it's a kind of like an advanced class in the sense that this is where we have to graduate to. This whole idea about, there is no creation and so on and so forth, needs to be appreciated at some stage in our life once we have really reached a certain stage of understanding. At that point that we need to do that. So even if we teach this today, it doesn't mean that you can see it right now, but as we were discussing at breakfast today, you have an idea of where I'm going. So that is really what you should know this. So in that sense, the ignorance of the self, this topic, is a little hard-hitting in the sense, as we discussed yesterday, that the Mahatmas don't fluff it up by saying, yes, you are ignorant and, the self, these sophisticated words like ignorance and ajnanam and so on are not used by Mahatma. They will say, you're an idiot. As we saw yesterday in the very popular Hindustani word, you are a bevakoof. And so what that is meant to do is to wake us up a little bit. Because I am very complacent. I maybe make some mistakes in my life and so on, but I think I'm doing okay. You're not doing okay. You're not doing okay. You have a huge problem. Do you realize that? This is what this one section of Ajnana Swarupam, so that's the topic, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Ajnanaka Varnan or Ajnana Swarupam. I'm not sure exactly the words that Swami Viditatmananda has used for this section. So this is from verses number 17 to 21. And so then it proves why we are so idiotic. So we saw the first ones yesterday also. So let's go on to the next few of them. So he says, listen, in doing this viveka between Atma and Anatma, you're getting two different things mixed up together. So let me tell you what the nature of this mix-up is. And so when you think about it in those specific terms, then you should get an idea what a huge mistake we are making in our life. This is what the intent of this section is. So the second one, which is verse number 18, says, Atma is the boss. It is the master. The Anatma is functioning as a supporting instrument, as we saw in the meditation. This is my team. So there is a boss of the team, which is you. Which is you. Atma means I. So the Atma is the boss. You can also call it as a free will. This is my will. My free will. And all the Anatma are kind of like your workers, slaves if you may. How can you have a mix-up between the boss and the ones that are controlled by the boss? You can utilize your team, but if you lose your identity as a boss, then you're in big trouble. You know, Swami, I forget whether it was Swami Maheshananji or Swami Akhandananda, in one of those two, this interesting example was given. So there was a big Seth, a very, Seth means a very rich man who had commanded a lot of property and he's had a lot of money and so on and so forth. So he had invited Swamiji for some talks at his home. And so one of the two Swamis, I forget which one, had gone to his home to teach, and in fact was staying with him for a week. What he noticed when he was there as the guest of this Seth is that there is a servant of the home who was really acting like a boss. So he was saying, the Seth will say, I think we should do it this way. So this obvious servant of the family would override him and says, no, I don't think we should do this. No. So he says, no, I think we should do this. He says, no, I'm not going to do this. So he says, okay, the big sage said it's okay. This was all done kind of quietly, without, but the Mahatma was very observant. So over a week or two, he saw that there is something funny going on, where the sage is really being led by this servant. So he finally just talked to him and he said, I noticed this. Why don't you just shut him up? Why do you have to go along with what he has to say? He said, Swamiji, I have to share a secret with you. I do a number of bad things in my life. I drink. I actually have prostitutes that I have sex with. This is the person who arranges everything for me. He is the one who keeps this as a secret from everybody else. He doesn't, my wife also doesn't know. And there's a lot of money that I spend on wrong things. I drink and so on and so forth. And this is the person who I rely upon for getting things done. So therefore, he has become my boss. And I'm very sorry to have this happen, but this is the situation I have. So in a way, this is what our situation is. You are the boss, and your mind is your servant. And what has happened is that your mind is the one that has been used to giving you pleasure. He's the one, mind meaning vasanas. See, remember, this is exactly the same thing that we are talking about. So vasana means just the way you're leading your life, the way you are conducting your thinking, the way you are concluding things. All those kinds of things are based on your mind. The mind says, I think we should take a vacation. Let's go to Europe. And then you say, well, I don't know. No, I think we need to go to... We have not seen, Germany yet. I mean, I see this really in my friends who will say, today I think we have to go to... We have not seen East Africa. Well, what is going to happen in East Africa if you don't see? Why don't you just look at this if you're so worried, thinking about the animals there in East Africa and so on. There's a very nice PBS program my wife and I watch about animals there and so on. It does a better job of really what you're going there for is the experience of the animals, remote animals. But no, I think now we have to go there. Or we have to go see this movie. Your slave is basically ruling over you. And so this inability, this is what this one particular verse is pointing out. He says, you are the boss, and the anatma is your team. And you're allowing your team to really dictate the terms for you. And if they're all helping you to achieve an end that you want, then that's wonderful. You see, this is the thing. You'll see this flow in this whole Aparokshanubhuti, that if you are following only vasanas, you are actually ending up in the wrong place. But the same team can be redirected by you to go in the right direction. It's not as though there's something wrong with the team. It's your relationship with it. We've heard these terms, the tail wagging the dog. That's exactly what we are doing. And the reason for that is that you have not been able to distinguish the difference between you and your team. It's almost like the electricity flowing through an appliance, and you have abdicated the fact that you're independent from the appliance. If the appliance malfunctions, nothing happens to you. It'll be nice to have an appliance working because your own glory can be expressed. But if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So this indistinguishing, so for example, Swami Akhandananda was saying that if you ask a child meaning even 5 or 6 years old, something like that, you turn the light bulb on, and there is light in the room, and you ask the person, what created this light? The child would say, this bulb, this glowing bulb is the one that is lighting. And it's not a completely wrong answer, but it's not a complete answer. That's not really completely true. Because what powers is the electricity behind the bulb, not the bulb by itself. Same situation with us. Our mind is functioning, our body is functioning, sense organs are functioning, the whole team is functioning. But they are functioning because I am there. They are not functioning by themselves. I am the independent one. And I should see that if the appliance that I possess malfunctions, nothing happens to me. This is what ignorance means. If my existence, my functioning, my nature, my properties, my life, my experiences are completely abdicated to the team, I'm making a huge mistake. I'm an idiot. And that can only be done if I see there is a problem in the way I'm thinking. I'm mixing them up. They cannot be mixed up. This is the nature of ajnanam, Adi Sankara says. So here Shankara says, don't you see this? You should be able to see this. And if you don't see it, don't feel bad about it, but eventually you should, because we are just wasting our time. So that's the essence of the verse number 18. And again, Swami Akhandananda ji very well connects this. You see, this is something that I've talked about here and there in pieces, but if you connect it all, so here it is said, I said that if you are focused on what you see, you are making a mistake. If you are focused on things that make you see, you're going in the right direction. I said that quite a while ago. It is exactly the same thing. So, abdicating your freedom to the vasanas is going in the wrong direction. Because what the vasanas or samskaras or whatever you may call it, what that would do is to completely be just enjoying the scenes that you are. and you have no idea about what is it that is making you see. Who is it that is making you are not explored the swarupa of electricity. You're only an expert in the appliances. So therefore, all the Vedantic masters say that your wisdom, your maturity in life, in the flow of lives, not only in this life, but in the flow of lives, hopefully in this life you can make that happen. If not, then they'll keep on going. But the principles remain the same. Whether something happens to you while you are exploring this, and you have to become a baby again, and the same thing will happen. There's no change in it. Sooner or later you have to pass through a door. And that door of wisdom is to focus on the electricity, not the appliance. Is to focus on yourself, the boss, the independent person. The reason upon his boss is that whatever happens to my team ultimately doesn't make any difference to me because I'm not dependent on them. This is the ultimate boss. Yeah, this is just reminded me to talk about the word Ishvara. So the word Ishvara consists of two sections. One is called Ish, and the other one is the Varat Pratyaya. Varach, I think it's called Varach. Varach suffix. So the word Ishvara means the one who is the boss. And here the word Ishvara applies to everyone. This is the Brahman. Ishvara, of course, is the one who's in charge of all the laws and so on. That we don't have to worry about that. But the essence of Ishvara is the essence of the Atma. And the essence of the Atma is Ishvara. Ishvara consists of two words, Ish and Varach. So what happens is, Ish means to boss, to be the boss. But normally in our life, we are bosses of some things, but not of everything. So we are the boss of ants flying around in my house, not flying out, but moving around in my house, because I can, on insects flying around in the house. I can kill them if I want to. Leave them as they are. Trap them if I want to. Whatever I want to do, I am the boss. But then I also have a boss, either at work or somebody else. I am not a total boss. The Varaj Pratyaya says total. The meaning of the word Varaj is total, absolute, not relative. So this is why the word Bhaswara is used for the sun. So Bha means to light up. And so, for example, light bulbs also can be called a Bha because they can light up. But they can also be subject to be extinguished. So they are not totally Bha, but the Bha of the sun is the nature of the sun. It's never like I am resting now. I am the nature of light. So that's why it's totally Bha. It's called Bhaswara. So similarly, Ishvara means who's not partially a boss, sometimes a boss, sometimes not. It doesn't have another boss on top of it. So this is what is called Paramatma. In the case of the human being, you can call it, if you want to make some minor distinction, you can call it Jivatma. So Jivatma is also a boss. And really, Jivatma is nothing but Paramatma, as we saw in yesterday's class. There's no difference between Ishvara and Jiva. But for the time being, I feel I am not the Paramatma. I'm just the Jivatma. What I don't realize is that I am the Paramatma. I am the total boss. We'll talk more about that part of it in a little while. But anyway, so this one point about the ignorance. The ignorance is I am mixing up the boss and the team. There's no justification for that. You're not only functioning as an appliance. For the time being, you're functioning as an appliance. You don't have to function as an appliance. You're okay the one without it. If the bulb malfunctions, nothing happens to the electricity. If the bulb is turned off, manually turned off, no, not a malfunction, but just manually turned off, there's no problem with the electricity, no effect on the electricity. So this distinction is the cause of my problem. And I think that example about this Seth and how he was allowing the servant to really become his boss because of his compromises of his own moral values and so on, is a good one. Is a good one. I should not allow my mind to become my boss. I should really learn to say no. So all of this wisdom that we are talking about, it's interesting, just to give you a kind of a flow of things. We're talking about reaching heights where there is no srishti, there is no creation. And we all have questions about how can we do that, how can we explain it to the others and so on. So this understanding, this conclusion that there is no srishti doesn't have to be done in one step. The fact that this world is mithya, that the world is non-unreal, that example of the fact that this is not a real fruit, this is a stone fruit. This understanding that the world here is just an appearance and it has no value to me, that does not have to be done in one step. It's not as though one day you are saying everything is all reality and the very next step, as soon as something is given, you will now discover that the world is now no effect on you. It's not going to happen that way. How is it going to happen, therefore? Because it is your own, it is under your control, your Atma Kripa. You have to take baby steps towards that conclusion. The conclusion has to be well understood. The goal of getting there has to be well understood. That part is for sure. This is what Shravanam does. But to get there, there's no need to be frustrated because it's something that takes multiple steps. What are some of the multiple steps? Vairagya. How does Vairagya express itself? So the Vairagya is based on You, the human being, you have to make a decision. Again, if you are totally involved with trivial things in life, you're a baby. You haven't really progressed very well in the realization of the spiritual truth. If you become somewhat distant from it, and you are able to live with yourself by not depending on other things, you are now growing. You are growing. And the more, and then your viveka, your thinking, your observation has to be very much there. You have to evaluate yourself. How dependent am I to the world for my happiness? Well, in the beginning, when you're a baby, you're totally dependent on the world. But then, the Shastra says, you don't have to depend on it. You are an independent Ananda source. I hear that, but it just looks like something which is not achievable. It is very achievable, but you have to take the steps towards it. Try to be less involved with trivial things. Tread the path of just being yourself without really being totally at the mercy of things that are happening to you. Try it. Do it one step at a time, without any help from anyone. Only Shastra. That is your true mother. And slowly you will discover this is working. And so then, without going through some other steps that we can do some other time, all I wanted to say was that this idea of that I'm the boss, I'm very different from everybody else, and so on and so forth, doesn't have to be done in one step. But unless you start moving in that direction, so this is what I was saying, Swami Chinmayananda's words were so resonant in my mind, that both Viveka and Vairagya have to be there for you to really... He used this, I remember this so well, Swami Chinmayananda. He said, it is an amazing thing, which we all experience it. Anytime we fly, this happened just last Saturday when we were flying, I was in San Francisco. It is an amazing thing how this huge mass of a plane can fly. I was watching just the window outside and this thing was going on the runway. And it is hard to believe that this huge mass of metal and glass and so on can actually just fly away. So Swami Chinmayananda used that example. He says at this point you feel that I am just a body and a mind. This is what I am. This is like an airplane sitting on the ground. And the objective is to fly far away, to lighten the load of the body and mind, and to really reach the heights of longevity, immortality. This is the flying. And it doesn't look like that I can fly. It doesn't look like it. It looks like I'm a huge sitting target and very vulnerable to things, not going to do anywhere. What makes you fly are Viveka and Vairagya. This is amazing. So just like the Wright brothers finally discovered that if you're moving in the direction, the way the wind occurs, it just lifts it. Amazing. What a discovery, honestly. And so something similar to that is what we need to do. It's very not only possible, that is our destiny. We have to really fly away, in fact, to a point where we don't have to come back. We reach heaven, so to speak. And so, in order to do that, we need both the wings. This is what Swami Chinmayananda used to say, that a bird cannot fly with just one wing. One wing. It has to have a flopping. It's a very beautiful thing how they do it. And so the bird is the same thing. What a lovely airplane God has made. It's just sitting there quietly, and all of a sudden you approach it, boom. And this ability to fly is not man-made. It's not made by the birds themselves. This is a remarkable thing, honestly. You talk about prarabdha and vasanas and all that. It's all there in the inside the birth of it. The moment the bird is born, the mother doesn't have to teach the bird, okay, now do this left wing first. Got it? Okay. Now use the right wing. No. That's it. All the mother and the father have to do is to bring them food to grow. But the seed of flying is already there by Paramatma. Very similar is the case with the human beings. The human beings, there is something more involved, because in the case of birds and other animals, whatever they have to do in order to be successful in their lives is instinctively given to them at the time of their birth. No, all perhaps the mother has to do is to hunt for the food, and perhaps the baby also watches the mom and dad hunt for the food. But that's all. As far as the basic functions are concerned, there is no teaching. The human being, there are two aspects involved. One is called shiksha and one is called diksha. Shiksha is to teach them any of the man-made knowledge, physics, chemistry, mathematics, etc., computer science, coding, all of that is shiksha. It doesn't shiksha. And the human being, of course, is a very special animal, because the human beings require a lot of time to grow, and it requires a lot of support from the mom and dad to grow. And then teachers come in, they go to school, they learn new subjects. All this is shiksha. But to fly away and leave the very firm conclusion that I am a limited being requires diksha. And the diksha is not given by your mother and father. Diksha is given by a guru. And a guru who hopefully has studied the matter and has self-applied the principles to himself or herself, that guru. Diksha is given by that person. This is a specialty of human beings. It requires eligibility, requires wisdom, maturity. But once you come to a point, then both viveka and vairagya have to be employed, or have to be taken into account. And if it is done, the future is amazing. Because then you actually leave the confines of your team and you become much more independent of it by yourself. This is what the teaching of Ishvara is. And that can only be done if I understand what mistakes I'm making, what I need to correct. So these are the instructions in these verses. Another one in number 19. Adi Sankara says, look at another distinction. You are a conscious entity. You're a conscious entity. See, this is where I've recently in the last couple of years or so, thought that this word consciousness doesn't really do justice to the Atma. For the very reason that I mentioned that in the meditation. And so if you look at the words that are used, this is where the Sanskrit language itself is the key of understanding all this. And any vernacular language that uses the Sanskrit terminology as part of it, like Hindi does and a lot of other languages also. So, the word consciousness doesn't appear in the vocabulary of these Mahatmas. Then what is it? Jnana Sarupa, Samvit, Jnanam. It's all Jnanam, Jnanam, Jnanam. And the two forms of Jnanam are the applied Jnanam, which is human-made, and the unapplied Jnanam, which is made by Ishvara, which is the Atma. There is a book by Swami Akhandananda that I read last September, October when I was down with COVID, and I must have read about, I think, 10 or 12 books in that 1 week. And one of them was just remarkable, and a section of that book is mind-blowing. My understanding grew some steps. So the name of that book is Sadhana and Brahma Anubhuti. This is the name of the book. Okay? And I've only studied it once. I've really sort of forgotten all the contents of it. But at the end of that, there is almost like a separate section. It seems like a separate section. The title of that, it's about 5 pages long and has about 13, 14 steps. The title of this section is called Aparoksha Jnanam. Aparoksha Jnanam. And I am I cannot believe what a insight it provides, how helpful it is. And I'm thinking perhaps I should just take a class just on that. But this is really meant for people who have been studying Vedanta. Otherwise it will not make any sense at all. So it's a very advanced class. And at breakfast, Raj, you and I were just discussing it as to when I will start this Mandukya. So I'm thinking that I might take a few classes just on this Aparoksha Jnanam. That's what I haven't decided yet. But what Aparoksha Jnanam does, what the title means is, Aparoksha, you know what Aparoksha is. It means not Purushajanya. Not Purushajanya means that knowledge not born by human beings. Because we have a lot of knowledge by the human beings, like chemistry, physics, etc., etc. So that is applied knowledge. But that knowledge is like an appliance, like an applied knowledge. Because the electricity, which is the very source of all these knowledges, is not human-made. That is the Paramatma. That is the Jnanam. So Swami Akhandananda will never use the word consciousness. Of course, it's not, he's talking in Hindi, not in Sanskrit, not in English. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deficient these translations are, because consciousness looks like a property. This thing has consciousness in it. So it seems like there is a thing through which he is attached to consciousness. That is not the case, as we saw in meditation. It is the very nature of the conscious being. It's Jnana Swarupa. So these Mahatmas don't use anything other than Jnanam. They might use Samvit. So Samvit means, oh, by the way, another interesting thing, the usage of all this. So there are two Sanskrit words used. One is called Chit, and the other one is called Chittam. Chitta. So there's two Tas, Chit and Chitta. So there, Chitta is the human knowledge, the applied knowledge. Chit is pure knowledge, it's the electricity. Chittam is the light of a bulb. Chit is the light of the electricity. There's another verse that will actually cover this a little bit later, so I'm going to just stop here and just go back to the thing. So let's just cover it in, see, there are 10 more minutes. Anyway, so let's do that systematically. So what we were saying was, in verse number 19, that one is, this is where I got sidetracked into defining the word consciousness, Aparoksha Jnanam, etc. So, but let's get back to number 19. It says, the Atma is Chaitanya Swarupa. Chaitanyam. Chaitanya means it's a conscious entity. I am, I know. All of the applied ones follow from it. They are like waves of the ocean. The water is the Chit. Chit Swarupoham. This is the conscious one. And in the example of the electricity and appliance, which is, I think, is a great example, great modern example. In the example of the electricity and appliance, the appliance is inert. The electricity is, in that example, is Chaitanya. Electricity has the ability to power things, to make light. And so the lightedness belongs to the Atma. But the human application of that, the Chittam, is the appliance which is inert. Adi Sankara says, how can you mix those up? Don't you see this is a big mistake? And also another thing, the inert depends on the Chaitanyam. So there's, in fact, you know what I'll do? Let me do this. this explanation that I'm giving, and I think I can complete it in the next few minutes, in verse number 20, it talks about the ability to light up things. So the distinction between something that lights up and something which is lighted by it should be made. So there is a difference between the meaning of verse 19, which is conscious. You are a conscious being, jnana swarupam. But you are also something that allows the whole world to be lighted. So I'm going to do both of them together, okay, 19 and 20. And you can study that on your own if with all the books that you have now. But let's just, in the interest of time, I'll just combine those two. So in terms of lighting, in the Nataka Deepa Prakaranam of the Panchadashi, Vidyaranya gives this very beautiful example. That you have, say there is a drama going on, and all the dancers are dancing, there's a lot of action, and they're so beautiful in their colors and their movements and so on. All that is going on. Okay? What we do not realize, this is the mistake we make. So if somebody says, okay, you went to this drama, can you tell me that everything that was there? Give a complete inventory, okay? Okay, I'll give you a complete inventory. Okay, so there were 2 dancers, and there were about 50 people watching. And there were 4 people playing musical instruments for the dance. So 4 plus 50 plus 2, that's 56 people. Is that all? Well, I mean, if you're counting, chairs. If you want me to count chairs also, yes, count everything. Chairs, carpet, this, that, or the other. Anything else? No, I think I've covered it all. What about the light? You forgot about the light. In fact, you cannot see anything. There is no action. There is no appreciation. There is nothing if the light was not there. Imagine it's a closed room with no windows and the light is not there. What will happen? Nothing is going to happen. There'll be no play, no nothing. So really speaking, so this is why, sometimes it is said that what you are seeing is not just the hand, but the light falling on the hand. I ignore it. Oh yeah, of course, light is there. I wasn't talking. I asked you to give a complete inventory. The light is the one, the electricity is the one that makes the light go. So now this is a very interesting thing, which is detailed in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It says, by which do you know? By what do you know things? Well, we can say that we know things by the light of and there's an example that, what time is it? Is it almost 10 o'clock? Yeah, I think I better not get into this. A very beautiful example given by Swami Akhandananda. This marvelous example. I think it was going to come later, but I might as well include it now. But I will start the next class with that example. And so that also clarifies the role of the light in this whole thing. And so Adi Sankara, just to summarize, says, please, don't mix up the light and the lighted. They're two different things altogether. How can you do that? I don't understand. I understand how you don't do that, but don't do it. Don't be idiotic. That's the reason for these verses. So with that, let me close this class, and we will meet again in about an hour. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadai Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
I think there is a seva opportunity for people who are willing to. There is a gardener here who is planting flower plants near Swami Vidyatmanandari's cottage. So if you're going to join there, he said he'll be here about 10 o'clock. So Dr. Chetan will help us with that. You can work for about 45 minutes and then get back to the class after. Thank you.
Raj?
I have kept it. Keep it right there.
Yeah, keep it. If they're not here yet, when they come, then